The city is currently offering sponsorships for some special events that are taking place in the next couple of months. If you would like to offer assistance for either Cesar Chavez Day on March 27th or the Armenian Genocide Commemoration on April 23rd, please contact Zizette Mullins at 818-548-4844. Just a reminder that within 2 weeks, the census forms will begin to appear in all residential mailboxes throughout the city. These forms are to be completed and returned by April 1st. Please comply. The city's federal funding depends on an accurate count of the population. If you have questions about the forms, check the city's census website at www.glendalecensus.org. That's it for this time. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
A fin de poder ver mejor a los peatones, la ciudad de Glendale ha instalado luces de advertencia en las calles para indicarle a los conductores cada vez que alguien esté cruzando la calle. Cuando usted vea que estas luces estén parpadeando, por favor disminuya la velocidad y detenga su vehículo. Yo soy oficial Leticia Chang del Departamento de Policía de la ciudad de Glendale. Al cruzar la calle, por favor recuerde 3 simples reglas. Espere, mire y camine. Prestando atención al cruzar puede salvarle la vida.
Good evening, Glendale. The Design Review Board 2 public meeting of February 25th, 2010 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker's cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on any specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be renoticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by calling our DRB hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. And please be advised the chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion. So this is now time for a roll call. Mr. Baladian?
Here.
Mr. Garagos?
Here.
Ms. Sakai is absent. Mr. Sarifian?
Here.
And Mr. Malikian?
Here.
Okay, report regarding posting in the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on February 18th, 2010. And I believe it is time for an election of a chairperson. So at this time, I'll turn it over to the chairman, the current chairman, I believe Mr. Malikian, and we can have the election.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Giragos to be our next chairperson because he had to substitute for you a few times, and he did such a nice job.
I don't mind. Like to stay on.
I can't second, so you need to.
Okay, I second that.
I hadn't expected that. Okay.
So can we have a roll call, please?
Do we have any other nominees? Okay, hearing that there are no other nominees, this is a roll call to elect Mr. Garagos as the chair of the Design Review Board. Mr. Baladian?
Yes.
Mr. Zarifian?
Yes.
Mr. Garagos?
I'll abstain.
And his last act as chair, Mr. Malikian?
Yes.
Very good. Mr. Garagos,
Congratulations.
you are the new chairperson.
Quite surprised.
I'll take my name. You can take your name.
Okay.
While we have a changing of the guard, oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes. The board may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision.
Who is this?
The board may refer to the matter to the proper department section for investigation and report. Do we have any speaker cards for items that are not part of this agenda?
I don't see any.
Okay, not seeing any. We'll go on to the review calendar. I do not believe that staff has any pertinent announcements. We have an item on the consent calendar, the case number 2-PDR 2009-073-A, which was continued at 3759 Los Amigos Street. We do need a continuance on that case.
We vote on that?
But we do need to have a vote on that.
We get a motion to...
Make a motion.
Is this to be for a date certain?
Yes, it's dated until March 11th.
So this would be continuing this case to a date certain, March 11th.
I'll make a motion to continue case number 2 PDR 2009-073.
You got a second?
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Malikian and a second from Mr. Zarifian to continue the case. This is a roll call. Mr. Baladian.
Yes.
Mr. Malikian.
Yes.
Mr. Zarifian.
Yes.
Chairman Garagos.
Yes.
Okay, that vote carries 4-0 to continue that item until March 11th. We now will move on to the regular calendar, and we will start with case 2-PDR-2009-066-A at 807 Ridge Drive. And Mr.
Can I just
Nazarian.
clarify one thing? It's
Yes.
Item C is off the calendar, is that?
Yes, item C will also be continued. We can take a vote on that now, or we can do it at the end of the agenda.
Is it a date certain, or is it?
Will it be to a Mr. Kiesel? It is Mr. Kiesel's case, and he will be here, so I'd rather wait until he gets here
Very good.
to find out if we're going to do it to a date certain or not.
Okay.
Okay, so we're on to case number 1 on Ridge Drive. Mr. Nazarian.
Thank you, Mr. Melis. Mr. Chair, members of the board. This first case for tonight is 2 PDR 2009-066A located at 807 Ridge Drive. Proposal is to add 715 square feet to the existing house. That is 1,546 square feet. Of that 715 square feet, 155 square feet will take place at the ground level towards the front of the house, and 560 square feet as a new second floor that's stepped back towards the back of the house. This is a first-time submittal for this project for final review. Subject property is located in the R1, R2 zone, and there are no environmental constraints. The Historic Preservation Planner has reviewed this project and has determined that this house does not have any potential historic resources. House was built in 1962. It is an L-shaped house. The proposal is to maintain as much as possible of that L shape while adding 155 square feet to the first floor, and majority of the addition will take place on the second floor. The step back that is proposed for the second floor, staff believes that it is sufficient enough to minimize its impact on the street level, and it was throughout extensive work with the applicant and staff, we have been able to come up with the design and guide the applicant through this to be able to push the addition as far back as possible to minimize and alleviate the impact created on the street level. Staff does recommend an approval of this project with a few recommended conditions. One is to remove the corbels at the rear of the house and lower the balcony wall and the cantilevered portion to the level of the roof line to help create better transition between the first floor and the second floor. Second is to eliminate...
Can you explain that?
Yes, I will show that on the plan. So the first condition is, the recommended condition is to remove the corbels and lower these to the same level as the roof line at the back. That's condition number 1.
And what does it do?
To help better transition between first. Because of this break here, we thought it would help better transition from first to second floor. Okay, and condition number 2 is to eliminate the second floor extension above the entry, which is this piece right here, and then introduce siding where appropriate. Now this condition is somewhat vague, and we would like the applicant to consider siding wherever appropriate. We don't have any particular or specific recommendations as to where, but it would, because it's a 2-story house now, it would help if they had sidings around, somewhere around the house, or even the entire second floor. That would be up to the board to discuss if the board feels it is a good idea.
Do you have pictures of the
Yes.
adjacent?
Condition number 4 is to provide vertical brick at the front. If you look at the pictures, the main character, the architectural element of the existing house is the vertical brick element at the front. And the staff recommends that they preserve this or provide a new brick at the front, preferably vertical, that will preserve the character of the house, of the existing house, because even though the roof lines do match the existing somewhat, removing of that brick will turn this into a different style house, which staff would like to see preserved. And lastly, additional fenestrations on east and west elevations is also recommended. That concludes my
Any other questions for staff?
presentation. If you have any questions.
Thank you. I have one card. Franco?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. Franco Naravian, 409 West Broadway, Glendale, California, 91204. I'm the architect on the project. I think staff did a good job of analyzing the project. The only thing I'd like to add is keep in mind, you can't see it in the elevations, but you can see in the pictures that the street rises on the north side of the property. So the north end of the project is slightly below street level. Really, I just want to go over the conditions, and I have no problem with condition 1. If you want to take out the corbels, it doesn't make that much difference. As far as condition number 2, eliminating the piece of the second floor that comes out, projects out a little bit, and lines up with the entry, I'd prefer not to do that if it's possible, because I think if we take that away, it'll. I think that piece provides a little bit of continuity between first floor and second floor, ties it in a little bit with the entry. In my previous design, I had the front second story pushed way back, way forward. And now that it's back, that piece is the only thing that makes it, gives it a little bit of a second story look. Because of the steep roof pitch, it's not that steep, but 5 and 12 roof pitch, you almost can't see the second floor. And I'm afraid if we take that away, that second floor would look more like an addition. So I'd like to keep it if it's possible. Siding, once again, I think because it's pushed so far back, I don't think that massing is an issue, so I prefer not to do the siding. But there again, if you decide we need it, we'll comply. And as far as the vertical brick element, I really don't like the brick that's there now. It's the very inexpensive kind of a veneer. If we have to do brick anywhere, I'd rather do like a stone veneer and not brick. But I don't think it needs it. I think it's a simple house. The mass is broken up substantially. Even in the one-story one, it's not a box. It's broken up. So I don't think we need anything. The only place I added a trellis in the existing front of the garage, it's a big stucco wall. And I didn't want to introduce a window because behind it is existing cabinets. So I added a trellis just so we don't have a blank wall. But keep in mind, again, the street rises at about 4 feet in that corner, so that's not really that visible from the street. Additional fenestration, I'll be happy to comply, but my concern was privacy of the neighbors. So that's why I tried to only keep the windows to the back. But if you don't think that's a problem, then we'll put in the additional fenestration. That's all I have.
Can you explain how you're changing the front roof line facing the street? You have the hip and the gable and then the exposed sidings, and how are you are you keeping it? Are you replacing the entire roof? Are you cutting it back? Or are you
we're just going to remove this because it's like a Dutch gable. Is that what they call that? Yeah. We're removing the gable part of it and going to keep all hip. So the roofing will come off. We'll redo that section of the roof, and it'll be all hip roofs. I think it's just cleaner than it became problematic keeping the Dutch gable and trying to add on a second floor. I think for a one-story house, simple house, it works. But once you try to add the second floor, it was a problem. So that's why I decided the hip roof.
And my last question, the 22 foot 4 inches, it's from the lowest point to the highest ridge line that you're adding, right?
Correct.
Any questions, the applicant? Actually had a couple. You're showing a siding sample and you're showing a stone sample. Oh. Is your intent to add those or
no? No. I apologize for that. Originally, my original design was a 2-story addition on the southeast corner where the current driveway is, and it was going to be move the garage, have it face the street, and add a second floor on top. That would have been the most economical way to do the addition. But that was rejected by staff because it would have made the garage face the street, and most of the homes on that street don't have a garage facing the street. So we went back to this, and I guess the stucco color and everything remained the same, but after that addition, since we're doing the second story is pushed way back, we're not proposing stucco and veneer.
if,
I
and I'm
mean,
not going
siding and veneer.
I'm not going to suppose that the board will agree, but I'm just wondering if the stone, if the board decided to add some stone and
Then
those colors, you're okay
that
with
will
those
be fine
colors?
with that.
Okay. I did have a question. Anybody else have a question?
No, I'm fine.
On the site plan and on the 3D, I think what's nice about it is that you are showing some landscaping between the driveway and the building, but it doesn't really show on the site plan. Is your intent to do it like the 3D?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I think we would be required to because you have to have more than 50% of the front landscaped, and if
Yeah.
you keep it concrete, then it's not landscaped.
Yeah, no, I agree. Just, and then on the, well, that's fine. Okay. That's good. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak on this topic, this application? Hey, who wants to talk first?
I guess I can start.
You go first.
I think overall, I think I like it. I think it's a simple addition. I really don't see much of improvement if we start adding any veneer or anything like that. So I personally, I think it's fine. I think it's simple enough. Going down the list of the recommendations, removing the corbels and lowering the back area, I don't mind that. It really doesn't do anything to me. I mean, it's in the back. It's a very small little detail. I understand where the staff is coming from. It's not consistent. We're not using any of the corbels anywhere around except the back area. And I can see why the architect used it. So I guess I would leave it up to my colleagues to see what they think. Personally, I don't mind it. As far as the eliminating the second floor extension, I don't mind the extension. As a matter of fact, I was going to say, rather than being consistent or in line with the entry volume or the recessed area, maybe one option is to continue that volume to the end of the building, end of that, so creating one large square piece, cleaning up the closet area rather than having it broken up, and bringing that, and maybe with a window or something. I don't know, but personally, I don't mind it. And I don't. In perspective-wise, when you look at it, it really doesn't read as strongly as it does on the elevation. So I think if the volume was square rather than coming from the side and goes back and then comes back out again. So I think if that was continuation of the, what do you call it, need a north arrow. So the left side of the property, continuing that addition along. So I think I wouldn't mind seeing that. I wouldn't mind having that extrusion there. As far as introducing siding, again, I don't really see anywhere that we can add siding, and if it's going to be added on, I think it'll take away from the simple architecture that he has created. So I'm not sure about that. As far as the brick in the front, I don't mind that. In addition, additional fenestration on east and west elevations. If it works with the function, it's fine. It's facing the property on the right side. It's facing the property that more of a recessed area. So you have a raised planter area, and so the windows are going to face the side, which will be landscaping side. I think it'll be fine. I think we can go ahead and do that. As far as the left side, if the bedrooms allow you to have windows, then I don't mind having some windows there too. So again, give or take. It's such a simple proposal that I think we're just forcing things on it. It's just, I think if we leave it as simple as it is, I think it'll be more successful rather than dressing it up with details and other stuff. I wasn't sure what the trimming around the windows were, so I'm assuming it's a wood trimming or whatever it is. And as far as the aluminum clad, I didn't see a color selection on the window. So I would probably go with, if you're going with the renderings, I don't know if I would use a lighter window coloring. I think I would go with a little bit of a darker. So I think the contrast in the dark windows and the light stucco, it'll work well with the front entry and the garage door. So I think the color selection there, I think is going to be really important. But other than that, I'm okay.
Okay. Yeah, I can go next. Yeah. No, as usual, it's a very nice addition. I think it's a very simple and nicely planned second story and first story additions, and makes a complete sense with the overall kind of building proposal. I think the first, just going through the list again, I agreed with almost, I think, everything that I was going to say Chairperson Malekian, but
not anymore.
Board Member Malekian now.
I'm relieved of that.
Said, the removal of the corbels, I think probably will make it more in line with the rest of the building. So I would agree with that proposal. Then the second floor extension above the entry, I know that the way it centers itself with the entry, there's an intention to kind of mark the entry again. But as I looked at the three-dimensional drawing, it looks a little bit small, and I think that's the same reaction that Board Member Malekian had. But I don't know, I like the way the bedroom, the two windows frame the location of the bed, and so I couldn't find an easy way to make it be centered with the entry and make it larger, but it needs to be larger. But I'll let it up to you to kind of figure out how you want to do it. But it needs to become more significant in the whole composition. Then I think the building doesn't need any brick. I think keeping it simple will make it better. Because even in the existing building, that brick wall is just on its own and doesn't do much. So why should you carry it along? So therefore, no siding I don't think is necessary, and so brick falls almost in the same category. Additional fenestration, I think you can add it probably more in the ground level. If you like, because I think we've been sensitive about adding second floor openings into the neighbors' yards, and it doesn't make the neighbors feel comfortable, and you've been sensitive to that. So I don't think it's a condition in my view, but if there is a chance to add more windows in a way that it won't be intruding into the neighbors' kind of property, I'm fine with that. Other than that, I don't have any.
Okay, I'm not going to repeat what my colleagues said. Overall, it's a nice composition. I have no problem with the second story, with the design. The corbel, I agree with Mr. Zarifian. I mean, you don't need it. You're not using it any other place, so I agree with the recommendation. I'm not crazy about the bricks or the sidings. I'm for the cleaner proposal, but I do have some recommendation as far as the one thing. It's not clear for me as far as the drawings. I wish that next time or in the future, when you lay down the second floor, have like a highlight, because you're playing that second floor addition is kind of somewhere on the second. It's the input overlaying on top. That way we could know. The problem I have, it's not a problem, but it's a recommendation for you to look into is the rear elevation. Because we have too many articulation. Maybe it's good articulation to do, but that bathroom, that existing bathroom we have on the first floor, it's like sticking out. I know it's part of the existing floor plan, but kind of it's like, why is that bathroom sticking out? I mean, maybe you're going the length to do the remodel and doing the second floor addition, and by just looking, maybe you might, as a recommendation, maybe you should clean it up, that facade. You might, because you overlaying, I can't see it, because I've been going and coming between the elevation and the floor plans trying to visualize that area. You have that balcony, you have the roof and all that. I think that, I don't know, my colleagues were looking into it. I don't know if they agree or disagree. Maybe you would have to clean up that. It's as a recommendation. As far as, it's a pretty straightforward proposal. I don't have a problem with it, except for the rear elevation. That's it. That's what I don't know.
Okay.
You're shot.
Thank you. Again, I agree with all the others. I think the issues addressed are fine. I think the corbels could come or go. I don't think that's a problem. The second floor thing, I do agree with that it would be nice if it actually went to the edge. The only issue with taking it to the side is then what do you do with the windows and alignment? So that's a difficult part of that aspect, so we'll leave that for later. The siding issue for me is really, I guess the majority aren't really necessary. There's no examples of wainscoting in the neighborhood or that kind of thing. But you do see in the examples around the street where there's sort of a panel of it. There'd be a panel of siding or there'd be a panel of stone, and you would do it on one surface, full height, and in your case, it might be that extension on the first floor bedroom. You might just do it on that whole wall as an homage to the neighborhood. So that's the only place I would see doing it if the board agreed to it. But
Which elevation was that? I'm sorry.
To the left hand of the 3D, the first floor section.
By the garage.
Right.
Oh, I see.
You might do this wall. If you look at the neighbors, that's the siding is a full element that goes full height, and they'll do a siding in a panel or they'll do stone in a panel. I think the brick that was there's no reason to keep that. It didn't look good on the house to begin with, and good riddance. but the idea though of the brick is that it was a panel of something, and I think that would be consistent. But I would want to know how the board felt about it. But I can sort of see that happening. And then the fenestration, I think, is fine. I wouldn't change it. It's the whole issues of neighbors and second floors. And you've pushed up. The only side that's really an issue is on the down sloping side, and you have the roof that's covering that wall quite a bit. So there's no reason to add a window for the sake of interest on that wall, I don't think. So all in all, I think it's fine. The only question I'd have would be whether we would introduce some stone in a panel element or not. But I think if it isn't, I would hope that we would definitely ask for a landscape plan, because the landscape is really going to make this one work and not seem, so plaster box-ish. And again, if you look at the neighborhood, all that very mature planting everywhere, which kind of camouflages very stucco buildings. So if we didn't do stone, I'd really make sure that we had a landscape plan that was tall enough and substantial enough that it would help sort of camouflage the building a little bit. If anyone wants to make a motion?
Can we hear some of the comments?
Yes.
Or do we have
sure.
any?
I would like to go over some of the comments we've heard.
Your assistance is always helpful.
From what I understood, the board would like to see the second floor extension to be extended towards the left, except for Mr. Garagos was not 100% sure on that.
I would say it was a consideration for me. I don't know if it was a condition.
No, the way I describe it was that it seems like that element wants to be larger, but there was an alignment issue with the entry, which kind of that tries to mark the entry. If it goes, I think, all the way to the left, it might create some imbalance. I don't know, but I wanted to leave it up to the architect.
So it would be a consideration to make that
make it
portion
larger, more
I
significant.
agree.
Okay. And then I did hear one specific.
Excuse me, on that element, is there a preference for having the window align with the door, or to have it asymmetrical, or no preference from the board?
If I may, I think if I would increase or enlarge that area, I would move the window. I would just create it as a volume, just leave it as that, rather than start competing with the window. Or
I think moving it to the west might, or to the left might completely work out. Because we haven't drawn it and
Right.
looked at it.
I think elevation-wise, I think it works well. I think it's in line, proportionally, scale-wise, I think it's right on. But when you start looking at it in a perspective, it just looks like an odd addition there.
Yeah.
It looks really odd, so I think if we
Well, the
take
question
it
is,
to
would
the
you still
edge-
have a window, though? And would it be centered?
I think if you enlarge it and leave the window there, then it's just going to create a different issue.
Right,
I think
right.
what I would do is I would enlarge it and get rid of the window.
And
just
have a
call it-
blank wall?
and just
Oh,
have
no,
a
blank wall would be not.
Yeah, I wouldn't be,
I just think that
yeah, I wouldn't want to do a blank
No,
wall.
I would leave the window in.
So you would have an off-center window in that volume?
No, I would think that element is so frontal that needs to be very symmetrical and.
So you wouldn't enlarge that?
But does it need a center on the door, though? Could it center within itself?
I think
Not center on the door.
if it loses its alignment with the doorway, then it has to do its own thing. There's no need to align the window with the doorway.
What I was saying, rather than, my thought was keeping this edge where it is and bringing this out, so
Right.
this whole thing.
No, but the second question is if you have a window or not, and if it's aligned on the door.
I think if we leave the window, if you enlarge this and we'll leave the window, then we're going to have an asymmetrical condition, which I think that needs to be looked at on its own when the perspective is drawn. But I think if we do enlarge this, maybe that volume can, I don't know, the brick can maybe come in.
So you're actually saying no window there, if you did.
I think if you widen that, the window becomes asymmetrical, and I don't know if that's going to really work.
Okay.
That's my thing.
Yeah, I think if it gets wider, I think you're right, it doesn't become part of the door anymore, and it could be its own thing.
No, I think it will be much better if it's bigger and probably go all the way to the left. But I think.
What are we going to achieve? We're not
So
gonna
so
achieve
you're
it.
saying
windows,
to
you
widen
can-
it, but leave the window?
No.
No, but then
maybe
center the
add
window
another
along the
window.
extension.
Oh, add another window.
Maybe
That may be.
Maybe you do two windows, but it needs something. It needs windows.
Okay, so we'll record that condition as to...
We'll leave it up to
It's-
staff.
It's to enlarge that projection is a recommendation or a condition?
Enlarge
To enlarge that
It's-
projection, is that...
condition, please.
That's a condition, and then the fenestration is
Has to be
reconsidered.
larger, but he can figure out what's the best way to go about that. And
Okay, so we'll just record it as reconsider the size and location of the window.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, another specific condition that I heard was from Mr. Malikian to have a darker window surrounds that will create more contrast with the existing. with
Not
proposed
the
stucco.
window surrounds, the window itself.
The window itself.
Right, because I think what he's, there's, I didn't see it. It's
pretty dark.
It's that trim color.
Color, trim.
Your trim color is the
I'm
window
talking
color?
about the window itself. That's the trim.
No,
But I'm
that's the
talking
window
about the
color, too.
window.
He's saying that's the window color.
That's the window as well. So the trim and the window are the same color.
Okay.
So then, that is fine, what's being proposed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it doesn't say window, it just says trim, so but that's fine.
Okay, removal of the corbels we heard that the board was leaning towards removing the corbels at the back as a condition, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. And one consideration that Mr. Boladian brought up was the rear elevation at the first floor, the projection of the bathroom area. The recommendation was to remove that and have a single plane. Did you want me to add that as a consideration?
All discussion. I mean, we'll have a cleaner. I mean, even the roof design will be much cleaner.
But that's part of the existing.
Yeah,
house,
that's
right?
what that's what I was doing as a recommendation.
Recommendation, consideration, okay?
Yeah, recommendation.
And a stone panel on the left side of the front elevation brought up, Mr. Garagos mentioned that one. Was that, did you want me to put that as a condition to provide stone panel or maybe brick panel on the left side of the front elevation?
As a recommendation.
As a recommendation. And also a landscape plan that will all help camouflage
That's a
that.
condition.
That's a condition?
Can I
Yes.
make a recommendation to the architect with regard to your panel issue that you mentioned? I think maybe if this is the volume that is articulated, because in plan it has a beginning and an end, and also it will make the entry to feel larger. So that will connect itself. That might be a recommendation also, or another way of looking at it. But just wanted to bring it up.
And is that a recommendation for stone or siding or brick?
Or any
Any of those
Second
materials?
material.
an accent of some sort.
Okay, and for the fenestrations on the east and west side, we did not hear any particular strong opinions on
I
that.
don't think it's necessary, but I don't know how you guys feel.
No, it's just a recommendation.
You would want me to
Just a
put that as a
recommendation.
consideration for
I
additional
think
fenestrations?
we can leave it up to the architect. If he decides that he wants to add more windows, I think he won't have any problems if he does, once he
Okay.
goes to the production level.
Okay,
So if he decides that, he doesn't need to come.
all right.
The one thing I gotta ask you, sir, I just noticed, the garage door opens the wall. You have that corner wall. It kind of is intruding into within the backup. No?
The
The radius swing.
No, look.
There's a
know if
25-foot
that-
radius provided
Site
at the...
plan shows it.
No, here, look at mine. See this opening, and this sticks out.
Well, it's a radius off the door. It's a radius off the door, so we could.
Is that
turn it-
okay?
I'm just
I don't
saying.
know.
The 25-foot radius is shown on the site plan, provided that no walls would
Well, the
be...
site plan and the floor
Well,
plan don't match.
how about the straight? Wasn't
The site plan
have a
and floor plan
clear
don't match.
backup?
Don't match.
minimum clear backup clearance?
No, excuse me, the requirement for a one or a two-car garage is to have the 25-foot turn radius. It's not the same as a surface parking area.
Okay.
And there is a differential in that in the code.
Okay.
What they do is they take this point, they go back 25 feet, and then they draw an
So this could go out.
Yeah, you should make sure that the site plan and the floor plan are consistent. Because the way it's showing it's not showing the same on the site plan.
So we're okay.
Yeah, on the site plan, that section is substantially further in towards the
That's why
house
it's
than
confusing.
the building, and then the floor plan, it's sticking into the doorway.
Yeah.
That's why it's...
Okay, we have anything else to add? We have anything to add?
So what are we doing for the second floor now?
It's too early.
Leave it as is.
Okay. I hear a motion? Is there a
Okay, I'll
motion?
make a motion to approve the project with the recommendations and considerations.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Mr. Malikian, second by Mr. Zarifian. This is a roll call. Mr. Baladian?
Yes.
Mr. Malikian?
Yes.
Mr. Zarifian?
Yes.
Chairman Gergos?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, we're going to move on to 2 PDR 2009-074-A, 1694 Royal Boulevard.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The next project before you with the case number 2PDR 2009-074 is located at 1694 Royal Boulevard. This is construction of a new second floor in addition to the first floor of an existing one-story single-family residence. The lot is 23,610 square feet. The zone is R1R, floor area ratio District 2. The request is also for legalization of existing vinyl windows. Although the site plan is adjacent to the Royal Boulevard, access to it is from private driveway which passes through properties that share this access road. From Royal Boulevard, the site slopes steeply down to graded path where the existing house is located. Royal Boulevard is elevated about 20 feet above the project site. The proposed two-story addition is located at the base of the upslope portion of the site, adjacent to the Royal Boulevard. The existing one-story house is 13 feet high, and the new two-story portion of the house will be 22.5 feet high. The one-story part of the building is located adjacent to the private driveway. The main mass of the building, the two-story portion, is proposed at the base of the slope down from Royal Boulevard and steps down to the first floor. This creates stepping of the building from Royal Boulevard towards the first floor. Although the ridge of the proposed second-story roof is approximately 3 feet above the grade of the street, it will likely not be seen due to the difference in elevation and the existing mature trees and shrubs. Only the proposed first-floor addition and the existing garage will have a second story, and the rest of the house remains one story. The landscape plan remains unchanged. No additional landscaping is proposed. The two-story addition is located partly on an area of the lot covered by concrete and partly on top of the existing garage. Therefore, not a major area of landscaping will be removed. While the overall configuration of the proposed and placement of the second floor appears appropriate for the site, the transition between one and two-story portion of the house should be improved. The subject house and the proposed addition will have modulation on all sides and multi-level roof. The roof of the building is hipped. Windows in the new additions are proposed to match the existing vinyl windows, which need to be legalized. Staff believes that vinyl window is not an appropriate type of window for this house because of the simplicity of the design of the house and that the existing windows appear in an integral part of the residence. The proposed cable railing, which is a typically new material introduced into the project, is appropriate for the simple expression of the residence. Staff recommends approval of the project with condition. The roof design to be revised where the first and second floor meet. I had another condition which I removed because the applicant brought updated drawings showing that the windows, the way the existing windows are. There are pictures. And this concludes my presentation. Any question?
Any questions from staff? Thank you very much. I have one card, Franco. Oh, you have another card. Great. Actually, hand it to me. To me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Once again, Mr. Chair and board members, Franco Naravian, 409 West Broadway, Glendale, California, 91204. I am also the architect on this project. Really, the idea behind this design was to try to take advantage of this very unique lot. I think the first one I've had where it's really not visible from anywhere. It's up against this slope from Royal, steep slope. And so the idea was to try to disturb the existing house as little as possible. So if you look at the existing plans, where the addition is pretty much going over the existing garage and the open area that we have, and it becomes a two-story addition. The only thing I have to say is I did look at the condition that staff had about providing transition between first and second. I know that it could be improved. I tried that, but the problem is when I tried to, the only way that I could find to try to make it better was to reduce the square footage and change the floor plan to make the roof work better, the first story roof.
Is this where they're talking about?
Yeah, I think that's where they're talking about. I think the staff's intention is for the hip to come and hit the wall at the corner. and I know it doesn't now, but I hesitate to do that because it would take away from the floor plan. If this was anywhere else where it would be visible, absolutely, I would have done it. But it's not an issue of like landscaping where you might say it will go away one day. The hill is always there, and this structure will never be visible. So I would prefer to keep the floor plan, keep the floor plan the way it is and not make any changes. But I'll leave that up to you. And if you have any questions,
I have a question.
Yeah.
I wish you, I wish you have a wall legend. That way you differentiate between the existing with the dark or light. I mean, you have proposed an existing. It's like really hard to go through, with the proposed retrain. It looks all.
The second story is all new, obviously. And the first floor, only the garage and the area behind the garage is new. The rest of the house is existing.
Yeah, but I wish you put a dark, the
I
proposed
can-
one darker legend that way. And I would like you say about what is your design about the angle and all that. I mean, is it now can we discuss now then?
Yeah.
Can we?
I'm going to ask him so you understand.
What was the reasoning behind that porch and the back area, that angle?
The reason is because if you look on the site plan, there's stairs that comes down from Royal. So really, it was trying to make the entry face a little bit the staircase that comes down, because you could park on Royal, and some people, instead of going down that narrow driveway, they'd park on Royal, take the stairs down, and then they would be facing. Can I approach? It'd be easier to show it on.
Sure.
Is that the proposed new entrance to this house?
No, this is existing. The stairs are existing, and see, this is angled in order to relate a little bit better to that. Otherwise, if it was completely straight, you're looking at an entry, and it really doesn't face the street, doesn't face anything.
It's kind of, there's a struggle there. Kind of, I mean, there's a design struggle too, a style struggle.
Yeah,
I think there's a struggle there. I mean, contemporary. I mean, I don't know. There's a language struggle.
Well, I also question. I'm also wondering if, as however often that happens that you come down the stairs in that way, they're most likely going to be coming up the driveway, and I think some of the issues is how you're treating that facade that would be happening all the time. As opposed to you're doing a lot of work on a facade for an entrance that might be less frequent than what's happening sort of the main front. So.
I see this as their own entry when they come, and then this is the public entry.
And then the main entrance you have at the rear.
No,
That's, the labeling. You have that rear west elevation. That's the main entrance.
No, the main entrance is the house, because that's what.
What was this one before?
This was the original entrance of the house. Yeah, original main entrance.
Because you would drive up, but this is, if you look on this plan, you see where that road is. It's a narrow driveway, a common driveway between all these lots.
This is maybe helping to explain.
Oh, to see where it is. And, most people would park on Royal and they would drive.
If their guests come, they're going to walk the steps.
Yes.
Wow.
Typically, that's what they do.
They're not going to come up the driveway, park here, and then walk
There's
in.
not that many. They have 2 cars, and usually it's parked here. So it's very difficult. That I can say every time I've been to their house, I need help from them backing down this driveway. So just for that reason alone, I don't think people will come up this driveway and back down. It's very difficult to turn around. So I think most people will approach the house that way.
I'm having problems. Okay.
So part of the project could be fixing the turnaround, right?
I don't know. Anyway, we'll discuss.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for applicant? Sosi Bedrosian, are you for or against or impartial?
I didn't say because I wanted to hear what was going on.
Okay.
Okay, and he more or less explained it. I live exactly across the street on 1693 Royal.
Okay.
Unless any of you have been on that street, it's the Indy 500 of LA. So very few people park on the street, have singways or whatever. Well, every time they have company, street where coming or going.
My concern is parking for the future, I know they're not going to have guests 24/7, but my concern is my next door neighbor to the right took 2.5 years that just got finished. A brand new 2-story building went up, and my entire street for 2.5 years with workers to work. Where are these workers going to park?
I've seen lots of deer come up there, but it's very narrow, and I know it's very difficult for people who live down there.
So, if there's going to be construction done, my concern is where are these people going to park? And construction takes more than 6 months nowadays. So, my concern is where are they going to park? How are they going to get the stuff down? Because it is a very narrow stepping down to go to that house. And my other question was, and I didn't know when you said 22 feet above, I mean, how much of it from Royal Boulevard are we going to see the roof line of the house?
3 feet above the surface of the...
So 3 feet. So from where I am, from my window, I'm going to see a roof from my living room.
Well, there are plants, if you...
I know there's plants. I see the plants all the time. But
Yeah.
now it's going to be above the plants, or?
I don't think so, but Franco can answer that.
Well, I mean, that's my concern is, and then for parking, does that mean that they will as well in the future, will they be parking there? Because when I back out of my driveway, I would have to hit a car in order for me to get out if they're going to park across the street, which is the top portion of their home.
This didn't require to have story poles? Stephanie's not.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
They did have story poles. Did you notice the story poles?
What are those?
Wires, all the wires up there. Did you happen to notice any of that during?
No, I did
never-
not see it, and I was concerned. I never knew what those were just
Okay.
till recently. I didn't see those. I would have to go to that stepping
Yeah, I
to
didn't
look
see them
down.
actually,
Okay,
so-
I think I saw it after I saw the sign up, or the sign that just went
I
up this
think,
week.
if I may answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the way I would answer your concern is, as a neighborly gesture, I think you already expressed your concern. As us being the design review board members and reviewing the design, it's somewhat out of our purview to constrain somebody going through construction just because how they're going to mitigate their parking. So I think what we can do is we can recommend certain not conditions, but recommend and considerations to them of controlling and somehow maintaining. They do have hours of construction time. Unfortunately,
I understand. It's not
You
an
know,
easy street.
it's not an easy street,
street.
right.
There's curves and so forth, and I'm just saying, if it's not going to be one of their cars that's going to get hit on the street, it's going to be one on the other side.
right. And I know that road really well, so I don't think anybody can park on their side. So I think unfortunately it's going to
Right.
happen on your side. So
And they have parked on the other side, and that's concerned me too, because I know that there are those cars, because there's children coming sometimes, and, I mean, we take life in our hands when we go to get in our car on that street.
we'll ask them to somehow mitigate that.
But that was my main concern. That's why I didn't put in opposed or whatever, just so I can check that.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to speak on this project? Did you fill out a? Yeah. Okay, please come up and state your name and just fill one out before you leave.
Okay.
State your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name's Pearl Ike. I'm right next to them.
Okay.
We are.
On the high side or low side?
No, we are actually. I'm facing his garage all the time.
You guys are sharing the driveway.
No, we're not sharing driveway. I have my own driveway.
Right next to it.
Right next to it.
Okay.
He had his own driveway to come out,
I see.
and I have my own driveway. So we can see each other.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm concerned, that's the question is, normally garage are lower than existing house. Now he's going to build second floor. According this plan, this picture, seems like the garage floor, the ceiling is the same high as existing the other side, which means are they going to raise the garage floor, the ceiling, to build another second floor on top of that? That's my main concern. Another thing, the window on their second floor, very large, which means that we look into my house directly. So I'm concerned about my privacy.
Is that,
It's a bedroom, it doesn't matter.
I'm 1704, right next to them. I don't have a problem with them to build second floor because their family is big, the boys grown up, very nice family.
right?
Okay, we know each other more than 3 years. I don't have a problem with that. The only thing is, we look at the hillside. On top of the hillside is Royal Boulevard. That's the lady on that side, on the hillside. So it's heavy traffic there. That's true too. And we are driving on the private road. And the only thing is, I wonder how high they're going to raise garage ceiling to build the second floor. From the picture, they look same level, and I'm concerned about it.
Yeah, if you see the story poles that are on site, that would give you an idea of where the second floor is going to be. And just to answer your question, the city council has given us direction on second floors that if it's a bedroom or a bathroom on a second floor, it tends to not be as a problem for a neighbor as opposed to being a living room or something that would be looking out. So it's hard for us to make them minimize those windows when it's a bedroom, but we can look into that. We can look at that.
Yeah, because according to the picture showing, because this is the first time I saw the picture showing the second floor window is much, much larger than existing any window are facing my side.
Okay.
Thank
If you can fill out a sheet.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak on this project? Hearing none? Oh, sure. If you want to come up and comment.
Clarification on if it will be visible from Royal. When we said 3 feet, we mean 3 feet from the sidewalk. And the shrubbery that's there now, it's at least 5-6 feet tall. So there's no way, and that's probably why you haven't noticed.
So the eave is actually below the sidewalk. And then it's the
absolutely.
ridge would then come up higher.
Correct.
So it's
And
the
you can
ridge
see
that's
it in-
coming up 3 feet above.
I think in the elevations, if you look, I show where Royal Boulevard is and where the hedges are and how.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Who wants to grab it?
I went first. So.
You went first.
I'll go first.
You go first.
Well, overall, I have problems with a few things with this project. Is the plans? It's not clear for me, this one, and I wish you have clearer legend and all that. Blah blah blah. Give us kind of a better idea what you're proposing, and also. The design, there's this language, the struggle between what style you're doing. I mean, are you going contemporary? That the 3D, I mean, the 3D drawing and the elevations, it's like, to me, it's like totally different design, in my opinion. So you need to define which direction you want to go and have a clear reasoning after, I mean, why you're doing that angle and all that. You explain kind of, I think you need to have a kind of more stronger, argument for why you're doing that angle and how you're going to, there's no, I have problem with the entrance. You don't have an entrance. The house is kind of, it's a box, but there's no symbolic entrance for, where's the entrance? I mean, if I drive there, I'm going to be one confused guest, and I'm going to say, where's the entrance? The front, the back, and then the addition above the garage, it looks like an addition. It doesn't, it's not there yet. I think it's not 100% yet, in my opinion. I mean, I think it needs kind of a little bit more attention to bring the puzzle together to make it. I think it's a great challenge, has a lot of potentials, but you need to go to the next level, I think, in my opinion, to make all the elements to work together to bring this structure. Color-wise, I mean, I think you need to define more. I mean, it's not complete. I mean, that's my opinion on, I don't know about you guys.
You want to take it?
Yeah, I was sort of thinking about this. The entry, I don't think there are too many things wrong with the addition or the project. To tell you the truth, when I saw the angled wall, I thought there was a constraint that made it kind of be in that direction. But then when I looked at the three-dimensional drawing, somehow it didn't bother me that much. So I'm kind of caught between. I would have probably made it remain orthogonal to the building. I think you can still find a very simple, nice way of doing it. Although I have to say I sort of like it but I tend to be sort of somewhat undecisive. I cannot make up my mind, but I can see where the orthogonal approach can be more in line with the building itself. As far as this condition about the roof transitioning, I think one way would be to instead of making this kind of angle that around the corner and return, can this be one directional and kind of work with this as a volume, so you don't return it back, but you take it up to this one direction. That's probably an easier way of finding some relationship. Otherwise, you have to change this whole volume to bring this edge to that corner, as you described. So that was one way I thought it's possible. I don't know. I hope you guys have other ideas that can be worked out. As far as the legalization of the windows, I have talked about vinyl windows before. I think vinyl windows are one of those windows that have gotten a bad rap. I don't think they're necessarily.
They're not evil?
They're not evil. I think vinyl windows are new technology. They're not that new, but somehow off the bat they got a bad kind of reputation. But I think they're good windows. So I don't have anything negative necessarily about those types of windows, because I think if they were created maybe 20 years earlier, or maybe let's take it further back, everyone would have loved it, because they're there and they're very sturdy, nice windows, and they're very green actually, so to speak. So I don't have a problem with vinyl windows, and that's my perspective on that.
Out.
Overall, I like the project. I think in that specific area of Royale, there's a very eclectic mixture of different architectures. It's kind of interesting. You have a very traditional ranch-style homes. You have a new classic or Mediterranean look, and which is every one of them stands on its own, and it gives a very interesting entry to the old Phillips and above introduction to what's to come. So I as taking a stand of what type of architecture and so forth, I think anything goes within that area, I think, if it's done well. I agree that the angle piece of that addition, even though it's not visible, but I think as part of our responsibility is to look at every project and trying to make it to be designed to its fullest. So as part of our responsibility, I feel that I need to give my comments and try to find a solution for what your take was, and maybe give another perspective of maybe looking at that, and that may give an option that it's viable. The contrast of the old, and the way I see it is the contrast of the old and the new addition. I think it's interesting. I think if we keep this as the new segment of the development, and I think you started looking at this as being more of a modern versus more of a existing, more of a humble, traditional one. I think this, what happens here is when you start from the front of, as you come in, when you're looking at this as this modern look, as it progresses to the side, it starts evolving into a morphing of the old and the new, which I think that's where the conflict is. And I think some of these issues are because of you're trying to maintain something that it doesn't want to be there. I'm not sure if the 50% rule is one of the elements that why you're keeping this, but the way I would have addressed this as a general rule is that if I'm going with more modern of this side, I would wrap that around, get rid of this, and bring and introduce portions of these railings and everything back in here and create a balcony or something there that it tells you this is the new and this is the old. And so that would have been a solution. You have a bedroom, that bedroom could have the same element there, maybe a balcony, maybe even projection of the balcony out, creating the handrail here, and this eliminates all of that problem, I think. The second issue that I see, which I agree with Mr. Balagian, is the angling of the entry. I understand why you're doing that, but the only person who's going to realize that is you and us on the plan, only on the plan. Because when you come in, you're just going to see this thing in kind of angled, and it's not really carrying it through the entire structure. It's just the front door is being angled. What I would do, or a suggestion, I'm not saying you should do that, it's just a suggestion, is that I would have accentuated the entrance, but to create that pathway or create that entry piece that you tell people, maybe this may have been an option, is to create a kind of a walkway, a contemporary, modern / traditional covered porch or something there that it gives an entry piece. You come in, you're walking under this covered area. It divides the section of the private, which is the pool area, and so it brings you down into this space, and this creates an entry piece. And therefore, you're introduced to, you're telling people, okay, you land here, you start walking under here. On the right is the pool, maybe a nice fountain or some element there. To the left, you have the hill. And that's how you would come in, and rather than creating this angled element there, it's really foreign to its mass. So I think that may have been one of the solutions that I would have looked at. I'm not saying you should redesign it, but I just think that this area is really in a conflict with all the simple architecture that you've created and the addition. I think it's really simple. I think it's a very clean, but there are things that are being forced into it that I think it needs a little bit more. And I think the site planning here is really critical, because then you got, and parts of those covered area walkways could have been some pedestals, some sitting area, benches, lights, whatever, that it kind of starts carrying up the steps, and you start getting introduced to what is to come.
I think this project would have been a perfect example, like if it has Frank Israel. I take the old, and you could check it into Frank Israel. Even your Yazdani has done his house. Remember that, his first house in the back? I mean, I'm not asking. I mean, if there's a lot of works out there, books that they've taken the old and then the addition, checking into it. I mean, I think don't get me wrong when I said I love angles. I love angles, but you have to take that angle and bring it inside out. It makes sense to make it work with the floor plan and all that. I think you will come up with a very interesting space with angles if you take it inside with the walls and all that. I wish looking into those guys. I think you will have an idea. I hope it will help you.
Okay. I also think it's close. For me, I don't think it's there yet for me. Because ultimately, like you said, you still need to look at the building as a whole, even though it may not be visible as much. Because I think people will probably still come up the driveway, and I think that has a facade that needs to be dealt with. And I think when I look at the plan, the dining room is really large lengthwise, and I think that those two walls don't have to match, the garage and the dining room, and that could pull back because on that elevation there is a nice in and out that kind of pulls down the line there. That by bringing the dining room back, it would kind of accentuate that interest. And I do agree with Alec that if you did bring those little more contemporary element onto the other facade, it could be a way of covering the door as you go in to that door, the other one of the many doors, many entrances into the house. That there was an element, if this came back, and then you introduced another element, maybe it was still on an angle, and you played up the element to use it again. And just like you said, that if it was a balcony that pulled out here, this was back further, so there was the in and out that's happening along the facade. I personally don't mind that. I think that's a way of sort of contemporizing an older, very simple house. So I don't mind the integration of that more contemporary element. I just would like to see it elsewhere. Like on the other side, I think it's a prominent facade, even though it may or may not be the front. But I think it's too simply done on that other facade for me to support it right at this time. So.
Can I just say?
Good.
I think all the comments are very interesting, and just wanted to kind of look at it the way that, as I said, if you look at the more orthogonal way of approaching to resolve this problem, is because I don't think the old part of the building will be contrasting enough to be different from the new modern. And so if it was a very old house and all of a sudden you create part of the house. Oh, sorry. So I maybe I should say it again. But I think the old part of the house is not old enough to create that kind of a contrast. That will be a very clear differentiation. So I think it would be a safer route to take to make this part be part of a larger, a larger house. You know what I'm trying to get at? If there was a big contrast, it would have been a much easier way to approach, and I completely agree. If you make that part of the house to be the new and very clearly the modern part versus the old part, but the old part is not old enough.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
I understand what you're saying. I think the issue that I have, I'm looking at this two-story volume as an individual independent volume, and in itself, it's contradicting from the front to back.
Yeah.
So
No, I
as it
totally
turns
agree.
around,
I understand what you're
it's just
saying.
not there. I think I would have taken it to the extreme. That's just me, but the level of detailing and the simple minimal railing details and the clean and the angle may actually work, may actually be part of it, but I think it's just happening in a very subtle and in an area that
You need to take
it's trying to address something that it's not really being taken to its fullest extent. what I would have wanted to see and say that, you know, if that angle piece was the element that it addresses the front end, the steps, that should have reflected to the steps. So the steps should have came in an angle, an element should have happened, something that kind of, it starts evolving, it starts twisting that part of the site plan to start addressing that angle piece. So if it's just happening just the front and that angled balcony that you end up getting a portion of it that it's pretty much non-usable on the second floor, just because, you know, and below it you don't have enough overhang to be an overhang, and above it you don't have even a portion of it that it's maybe 1/3 on the right of that it's non-usable. So extending that, maybe a walkway that it's kind of carries it on, and then the stairs kind of starts turning and things happen, and maybe even it becomes more three-dimensional, and it starts affecting the roof line, and so that's carrying it to the level that, you know, it would have been interesting to see. But I think you can do that, but I think you can also take the simple existing conditions and use that, and then just introduce very small little modern elements there that it's not really conflicting, and it makes the construction much easier to build, much cheaper, and maybe spend that little money, that extra money that you want, into the site planning of the steps and everything. So
yeah, if I was to kind of combine everything that you guys said, I think in a simple way, this is not the entry, that's the entry.
Exactly.
I mean, you have to kind of, it's an experience of it being kind of recognized as an entry, not the...
I think if you're looking into it, I mean, if you take another approach, as if you take the existing house, the way it's a grid, and then the addition, let's say, if you think this is 190-degree grid, the existing house, and then you're doing addition, the addition, let's say you're having the angle, maybe that angle becomes the overlapping grid, and once you lay down that grid, maybe this grid is shifted, and then you're bringing the existing grid with the new angled grid, and then work from there up with the spaces. I think I like this project. It has a lot of potential to do something very interesting. So you're the master. Do it. It's your baby. I mean, it's not mine. But there's a lot of. I mean, take it to the next level. I mean, the double grid, overlapping grid, and see where you go with it.
The last thing I'll say on this, I think what's interesting is that you're introducing the angle on this side, which is the straightest of the facades, when what I was feeling was that you actually have that angle going on here with the jogging happening, with the ins and outs happening. There actually is a sense of that going in that direction that could be played up, you know, along on this side. If this pulled back, and you got the ins and outs again, and then you had the angle working.
And that whole addition area should be on a different grid. I mean, one more I'm looking at it. I mean, it will come up with the nice lighting and shadows and blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. And on the blah, blah, blah,
let's finish it.
Okay. Let's get a motion. Can I get a motion? Actually, comments, please, from staff?
I'm going to read through, and then you can let me know which one is recommendation and which one is condition, or if any modification is required. Plans need to be cleared for clarification. The language of design need to be defined. The entrance of the house...
language of...
the architecture, the olden.
Architectural language need to be defined. The entrance of the house need to have more emphasis. The proposed angled entrance need to be worked out. Maintain the individuality of the two-story. Introduce element of entry elevation to other elevations of the new portion. I have to work it out.
But going back you said something about the front entry has to be more what?
The entrance is not defined.
Entrance need to be worked out and simplified.
I don't know if
I don't know if it has to be simplified.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm asking. I mean, I enjoy seeing something different. What I'm saying is, if you're going to do something different, take it to the extreme. But if you're going to do something, one option was straighten it out, clean it up, create some landscape elements there. So I don't know if I want to say simplify it, but I think I would probably say let the entry evolve and start incorporating some of the site and the front entry conditions to work with the front entry.
Yeah, or integrate.
I think the hardscape.
If I may, you've had a very interesting dialogue about how to improve the design of this project with a number of different suggestions, not some mutually exclusive. So if I could maybe read back an overall interpretation of the sense of the board, because I'm concerned that if the record of decision reads with very specific comments, then the intention might be lost. So there's a sense that the two-story addition could take the approach to blend in with the existing house, or it could take the approach to have some contrast with the existing house, which the board seemed to think would be maybe the more challenging of the two. And there was a lot of discussion about the entry sequence as well, in conjunction with integrating the overall design, that the overall design of that entry portion and what may be considered the back portion, but the pedestrian entry, if you will, should be better integrated with the overall site plan. So those are the sort of two big ideas that we can interpret from the overall comments, and then there were a number of suggestions that follow from those comments, but because it seems like the conversation was so broad and going in a number of directions, I'm wondering if the record of decision should be more of an intent. And I've seen that the architect seems to have a sense of what the board is talking about. So I think that we may have enough with that. And if you'd like me to reread the conditions back.
As long as somebody knows what we want.
Does that describe the sense of the board?
But, were you asking, do we want to make the recommendation to be old versus new or integrated?
Well, what we heard is that you're giving the architect a choice. If you don't want to give the architect a choice, you should let us and the architect know.
I think he has the choice because I think he's going the direction old and new. I don't think so he wants to blend it in. If he wants to blend it in, it's a totally different language. I think he wants to go to the other side. I think he knows what we're talking about. That's why we emphasize to ask him to go to the next level as far as the approaches to come up with a more complete.
Okay, and then if that is the direction to, say, modernize the project a bit more, we had heard from at least board member Malekian that there would be an option to contrast the two-story piece and that contemporary nature of it with the part that remains one story, rather than remodel the whole house, which would be an increased scope of work for the applicant.
But I think they still have the option of treating it all traditionally, mimicking the existing house. There's still that option, I think.
Yeah, I think
I mean, to clarify myself, just put this on the record. I think I don't mind the approach that they've taken. I like the approach. I like the simple, modern approach of the front entry. I think if that carries through to the back, I'm happy with that volume. And if you're going to maintain the angled entrance, I want that to be carried onto the site plan, and somehow the transition from the stairs onto the backyard.
Even
into the-
inside.
And inside, it's up to them. But to me,
Onto the west elevation.
to
too.
me, it's that. Or straighten that out, have some sort of a covered walkway, some element there that kind of brings them to the stairs. I'm happy with that. I mean, I think it's a simple and precise direction that I'm giving that I'm comfortable even approving with those 3 comments. And I can see where it's going to go, because I'm not telling them to change anything else. I'm saying if you're going to maintain what you have, just carry it around the back, put some...
I know
that was going to come up. So.
I brought up the issue because I thought there was a tendency to say that we like new versus old kind of approach and contrast. But I think that's a suggestion, and whether he likes to blend it in or do exactly that, that's a choice, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure that, and I think that's what Stephanie was referring to, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have we other comments?
I think the main thing is, as Stephanie simplified, is basically that I've added, consider the covered entrance porch from Royal and introduced, that's it, really.
The staff report was commenting on the south elevation, and I think, for me, it's really the west and east elevations, so.
Yes, you're right. I noticed
Very good.
that.
Is there a motion?
I want to add one more.
Okay.
Just as a consideration, is I know they're doing some extensive work towards the west elevation, where the garage entrance is. I think maybe that if they're going to spend the time and do some entry piece or site work there, they may want to look into having a turnaround area or something that for cars to back up, at least creating some sort of a staging for the construction.
Right.
So at least the contractors or someone that they able to place their cars or their, if they have a shack or something there, so they can actually do it rather than disturb the neighbors as they spoke.
Right. Actually, because the difference level and the number of steps carrying stuff from Royal to the site is quite difficult. I guess that is really automatically, of course, we will recommend that, but that is naturally what will happen, because it's a lot easier to park on the site than try to...
Usually the contractors, they come and park and they take their tools and they go down, they don't go back up to their cars. So deliveries and other stuff, that they're going to take that. But I think they do have a shed or some sort of a construction storage for their tools and everything. They can provide at least the contractors and subs, and they can kind of store their stuff there rather than, create that traffic, unnecessary traffic.
Okay, do we have a motion? Somebody?
I have a motion for redesign.
I hear a motion for redesign. Is there a second?
It's a
You guys-
redesign
Yeah.
motion, right? Yeah, a second.
So the motion is returned for redesign by Mr. Baladian and second by Mr. Zarifian. This is roll call. Mr. Baladian,
Yes.
Mr. Malikian,
Yes.
Mr. Zarifian,
Yes.
Chairman Gregos.
Yes.
Motion passes by 4-0. Thank you.
Okay, the third item, we need to vote on the continuance. of, is that right?
Actually, if I could interject, we'd like to continue that item to March 11th at 638 West Dryden. We had some noticing issues.
Okay, can I get a motion for that?
Make a motion to move to March 11th.
Second.
Yes, actually, sure.
And was there a
Thank you.
second? I'm sorry.
Second.
Yeah. Okay, a motion was made to continue the project to March 11th. Mr. Malikian?
Yes.
Mr. Zarifian?
Yes.
Mr. Beladian?
Yes.
Mr. Garagos?
Yes.
Can I hand over my badge?
We'd actually got a couple announcements. Could you hand back the two projects that were continued tonight?
Yes, that's what I was.
Los Amigos and Dryden.
Correct.
Can we vote on the last minutes? Did everybody get it in the email?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I skipped over.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah, I move to approve the minutes of, what's the date?
January 22nd.
January 22nd meeting.
Can I get a second?
Second. No.
All right, and that was Mr. Malikian that seconded it?
Yes.
Roll call, Mr. Zerfian?
Yes.
Malikian?
Yes.
Mr. Beladian?
Yes.
Mr. Garagos?
Yes.
Great. You got one announcement. I'm going to pass out a memo from the city attorney about a particular legal case. I haven't done it quite yet, so we'll pass that out to you all. I don't have anything else.
Legal case.
Is there a topic? What are an appetite? What is the topic? What's the first sentence? Subject heading.
Case of significant interest, Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission. Oh, it's regarding electioneering, I believe.
Okay.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn, anybody?
Here.
Great, thank you.
How do we do that? Adjourn.
Hand this to you.